Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is currently May 9th, 2010, and this is Day 9 Daily number 112. Huge numbers going on here, so of course that's always cool. Makes my e-penis feel enormous. In other unbelievably cool news, oh my god, this is so great. Okay, this is like the coolest thing that's ever happened to me. Martin from Austria, I need to give you a huge shout out because he sent me this shirt. Yes, Liz, he just sent me a shirt, which means I'm going to wear it. And note that it is the Zerg icon shirt, which means it'll always be a nice reminder that I need to practice more, because they really are my worst race. And also, apparently someone must have seen the number 100 show, because someone, without postmarking where it was from, sent me a little bunny. Oh my god, and look, and then someone, like, this is my bunny Manfred, who you can tell has been thoroughly loved. See, he's kind of a little bit broken. He's a little bit missing fur, and his ears are always all bent down and stuff. But now I have a smaller Manfred, so they can hang out together. So I'm delighted that someone sent me a bunny. If you guys have no clue what I'm talking about, you can go to my Blip TV account. Just look up Day 9 TV. It actually should be day9tv.blip.tv. And speaking of which, there's a ton of exciting stuff going on with that Blip TV. Soon I'll have all my videos up there. The only ones that are missing are 71 through 99. I just need to upload those, and then I'll have all my videos up there, and you can download them for your iPod on there. And I'm also going to set up a whole bunch of distribution from Blip TV, because they're amazing. Seriously, I just configure all these checkboxes, and there'll be RSS feeds. You can get them through iTunes, through Amazon, AOL, Vimeo, like a bazillion different ways, because Blip TV truly is the best. So today I'm very excited, because there is apparently, supposedly, theoretically, one of the most kick-ass StarCraft 1 games that has been played in a very long time. We're going to be watching Freeflv versus Hiya, played on this weird map called Triathlon. Triathlon is one of the funkier looking maps. I'm actually going to open it up and show it to you guys, just because it's this weird trend in map making where players understand that a lot of the balance issues are derived from maps, and therefore it's important to have I don't know how to spell triathlon, so I'm just doing There we go. Oh, yeah, sorry, I missed the H, no wonder. Yeah, a lot of people know that maps tend to be the big issue when it comes to map balance. And here, let me just move the map right here into the center of the screen. You're going to see a little bit of my head on the top, but, you know, still working out some of these technical kinks. People know that balance issues have to do with the map, but the big problem is that people are taking this a little bit overboard. I mean, so you have a main, and you have a natural behind you, but there's cocoons here that are, some of them are even cloaked by arbiters in the middle of the map, so you can't see them. So you basically need detection and units to kill them off. So I'm not going to spend too much time analyzing the map. I mean, you have a natural and you have a mineral expansion out there, but there are a whole bunch of other expansions that basically have this egg plus arbiter neutral thing combination, which is kind of funky, and hopefully we'll get to see some creative ways to do that, deal with that. For instance, a lot of Zerg players have just been sending overlords everywhere and walking the drones through the eggs, then going mass mutalisk. That's a great technique to do on a map like this. It was very popular on island-ish maps like Troy. A lot of players did that as well. But I have not actually seen this game, so we're actually just going to do a cold analysis between one of my absolute favorite players and then another player who, I don't really have anything, whoopsie daisies, I don't really have any issues with Hiya as an individual, as a human being. I think he's fine. I think his play is actually quite good. But I really love Free. Free is one of my absolute all-time favorite players. I really think that he's a total boss. I just think he's like one of the best players of all time in this game. Really just has solid everything. Just seems to have this ability to just buckle down and play really well whenever he needs to. And, once this thing ends up rebuffering, I might drop it down to the 360p if it continues to buffer like that. But the thing I love about Free is that Protoss vs. Protoss seems to be his worst matchup. He's great at Protoss vs. Terran, great versus Protoss vs. Zerg, and really bad at the mirrors, which has always been the tendency with me, and actually StarCraft 2. I'm a lot better at the non-mirrors. But either way, the way he plays is just... It's like solid play plus plus. He doesn't play really abstract or weird or kooky, kind of like, the way Poussin would play or something. And he doesn't play ultra standard the way that Stork would play or something. He plays somewhere in between there. And a very unique style that involves a good, decent bit of aggression. So, always absolutely love watching Free play. So we have Hiya spawning here on the left as Terran. And on the right, we have Free spawning. This should be Game 3 on Triathlon. apparently just an unbelievably epic, epic, epic game. Some people are asking about the progress bar and everything, but, you know, the window's actually fixed here, so there's not too much I can do about that. Except maybe I can scroll up marginally like that. That's right. There you go. No big deal. That should be good. So, fantastic. Phenomenal. So here we go. We have a usual wall off at the front. Pretty standard, pretty typical. No big deal. Most normal thing in the world. It's okay to note that you don't absolutely have to wall off. I mean, in StarCraft 2, it seems to be a default that players do that, and it's okay to steer clear from that. Walling off is almost always a vulnerability as much as it is an asset. In the early game, walling off prevents rushes. In the later stages of the game, it's just a free depot there. For instance, Immortal drops can abuse it quite a bit. And there is the barracks going down. Pretty normal. Walling himself in. And I'm really curious to see what it is that made this game so epic in particular. A lot of people were just super duper excited about this game. So that was pretty awesome. So it looks like Nexus on 14. On these sorts of 3-player maps, I'm going to briefly pause and open up Triathlon here. So on 3-player maps, a lot of times the distances tend to be quite far. So, for instance, here you'll note that the distance between these mains is pretty incredibly long. I would show you the bottom right, but there's this giant NBC game logo there. Excuse me. But, yeah, if you just wander right along here, this is an incredibly long walk path, so great idea to go ahead and just sneak up a fast expansion. Something like that. So now that we're getting a little bit more into the game, we can start to point out things like, okay, well, the Terran player could easily take this third base as long as he gets a siege tank to kill off these back-end guys. Seems pretty reasonable, and there's another gas expansion here. So given the fact that there are 4 free gas bases for a Terran player, I'm definitely gonna favor some sort of mass armory, mass factory style play. There's not too much abusability in terms of cliffs. Just straight up strong, solid macro is gonna be what Terran wants to do. And likewise, since there isn't that much extraordinarily abusable terrain for Protoss to do, but the distances are kind of far, and there's these weird wall-off regions, great idea to expand around a bunch, get a big ground army, and do a lot of recalls. Definitely going to be the prime choice in the universe. So, And I just want to state that for the record, if any of you are having any issues with any sort of stuttering problems or if it's laggy, I am streaming at a pretty high bit rate, and I'm going to end up bumping that down for subsequent shows to make sure it's a little bit easier for everyone. Otherwise, you can just get this on the on-demand section, nice and fine and well. So I'm going to back this up just a little bit to note that there is this expansion command center going down here. Great decision doing this expansion right here. Fantastic, right? Because he already has that wall off. Look, he has the wall off. Doesn't even need to make any units. Is building his refinery now. Free's doing probably the more typical early expand. Yeah, you know what? I am going to drop this, this bit rate down a little bit. There we go. Just going to set this to 360p just because it's starting to jump on my end, which is totally inappropriate. So there we go. It should be loading a little bit more smoothly now, and I can't tell the difference. So Free's doing the most standard thing that an early expander would do. He's going for the, yep, there's the Arbiter, by the way. For any of you who couldn't quite see, oh god, I gotta keep remembering that I need to pause in this bottom corner. But right here, there are a bunch of eggs that are cloaked by this neutral Arbiter, because these map makers are really going crazy with as many funky techniques as they can. But of course, he's just glitching through by checking with his worker. So if he double expands, that would be unbelievable. That would be so cool if he double expands. Now that's what I call some serious turtling map abuse right there. See, now this is something that I really like by a lot of players. I have sort of this double-edged sword kind of respect for players. So on one hand, I love players who will look at sort of a weird, funky map and just say, you know what, I'm going to do something normal on that map. I'm going to make sure that I just take my strategy, don't overreact to what's being presented to me, and just play straight up. But there are other players who overreact to the maps, right? They tend to see any sort of little abuse, and they're like, oh my god, I can put tanks there, can I? You know, like Sin Chu Peng Reung, which is this weird 2-player map where there is a piece of land behind your natural that you can just walk to. So a lot of Terran players just freaked out and rushed to place tanks there, or Zerg players rushed to place lurkers there because, oh my god, I can kill off his expansion. And this would end up with a lot of stupid games where the Zerg player would rush to get his lurkers there, and then the lurkers would die really easily, and then the Zerg would die immediately. So, you know, you gotta, there's like a trade-off there whenever you try to get overly creative. But what I love here, what I love is that this is not an overreaction to the map. This is a planning out of the map. There's very clearly a good follow through to this because this expansion up here that he's sneaking is hidden behind these eggs and this arbiter, and this expansion that he's taking normally is hidden behind the eggs and the arbiter. So that means that he can defend his main and his natural very easily using that high ground. Yeah, he's going to be able to defend this super, super easy, no problem whatsoever. And then he's going to be able to get a little bit of extra benefit from this top expansion. Now, there's a really important thing to note about sneaking expansions. A lot of people just get a hidden expansion, and actually this applies to any real-time strategy game, period. And of course, for me, that means StarCraft 1 and 2. Sneaking an expansion is going to help you, because you get more minerals, but getting an expansion is expensive. And a lot of people seem to neglect how truly expensive it is. Especially if you haven't been able to transfer probes there or transfer workers there because you're trying to hide it for as long as you possibly can. It's expensive, so it means you are set back a little bit by taking this expansion. Too often players will take a hidden expo and they'll just go, oh my god, I have more minerals. And they don't actually have more minerals yet. They'll have more minerals later when that expansion kicks in. And for now, they're actually sort of screwed. But they perceive themselves as being richer. So they try to be more aggressive. They build more factories than they can afford. They try to get, 2 armories instead of 1. And it's so important to note that whenever you sneak an expansion, make sure you have your normal build planned out. And then if you throw in a hidden expansion, try to just make your normal build a little bit faster and a little bit bigger. Don't overreact and freak out. And that's one thing that I'm especially delighted about by this game is Hiya is the sort of player not to really do that. So one thing to already note, we do see that Free is pretty much required to build 2 gateways very early on. He absolutely must build 2 gateways so that way he can get the Dragoon range in time. Dragoon range is super important, and you need the 2 gateways to have enough Dragoons to hold off any sort of early push, no matter what map you're on, no matter how far away you are. Really, if there's any sort of ground distance between these 2 bases, it's going to be an issue. Looks like this SCV up top hasn't quite yet taken this expansion. That's great. You don't need to rush for a hidden expansion, because then you end up kind of being completely and totally screwed, as opposed to, getting a little benefit. So look, there's the bunker there, and there is... What the heck? Oh my goodness. Okay, so holy shit. Okay, this is the point where we always stop and we go, oh my god, what's happening? He's making a bunch of starports. Ooh, so that's pretty cool. So let's think about this. Why would someone make a whole bunch of starports? Because the number one problem that pretty much any player who's trying to learn does is that they see a strategy that's weird, such as this one, and they'll just try to do it on any map. They'll just be, oh, Lost Temple. Well, I'm going to expand and build 3 starports and just get a bunch of wraiths. On this map, in particular, though, I think it makes a lot of sense. Because, remember how I said beforehand that on this map, see, there's all these bases that are hidden by these eggs. Even look here at this bottom expansion at the south end. There's eggs over here to the left. There's eggs over here to the right. It's completely blocked off by ground until you can end up knocking those eggs down. So that's why you heard me say beforehand, like, wow, what you really want to do is make a whole bunch of Mutalisks as Zerg. And then what you can do is abuse this Mutaliskness to defend all these island-ish expansions and defend them very easily. So it looks like Hiya's just doing the same thing as Terran. If I get a bunch of Wraiths, I can kill any shuttle that tries to get onto any of my bases. I can kill any Arbiter that tries to recall anything. And I can poke around and do harassment. Seems pretty reasonable. In fact, now it's starting to make even more sense as to why Hiya took an SCV to this top end of the map right away. He really did need to get that SCV in position pretty early on because he doesn't really have any ground map control. He can't comfortably walk in SCV at this point. Looks like this top left area is the popular expansion sneak of the week. But I'm real curious to see how Hiya is going to do this very unorthodox strategy. Now, I just want to pause for a little bit because I think naturally everyone's just going to get a boner and look down here at this bottom screen. They're going to, oh, Hiya, what's he doing? Oh my god. But let's actually briefly take a look up at Free and what's going on in Freetown as we got the chance to look at this multiple perspective cam. And again, there's the probe that coincidentally is waltzing himself right into the area that Hiya was going to expand to. Now watch Freeze Cam. Watch what he's doing. Looks like he's just getting gas at his expansion. There is the robotics facility going down there as well. That's great. I love that. That's a fantastic decision. He needs to get the observers up. A shuttle is generally good because you can get Reaver Harass up. And he's making Dragoons. Everything looked pretty normal by Free. And that's one thing that's so significant. This is really, 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 really important. Just to make sure this normal thing is... always forget that. Just to make sure this normal thing is going on by Free, because it's very easy, again, to overreact to this strategy that you're going to see. Part of the reason why players like this sort of early expand style as Free is that it's very versatile, and it can do a whole bunch of... variety of things. You know, I'm going to briefly reset this stream because, yeah, you know, it's jumping around a little bit, my bit rate. I'm just going to check this thing to see if it's actually locking the bit rate. It doesn't seem to. Well, you know what? I'm just going to upload this to on demand after the fact, and it should be less choppy there. So, sorry if it's seeming a little bit choppy there. I am not, in fact, going to reset the stream. Once again, this is my third cast here, so still trying to smooth out some of these issues. So the Academy's coming out by Hiya. Those Wraiths, completely insane, very unusual, absolutely undeniably unorthodox. But he's still getting the Academy, still making sure that he can have enough scan to deal with anything kooky. A lot of players will forget that, and really I would prefer scan to an engineering bay in this particular circumstance. It's going to be a little bit more stable there. And also, if any of you are having any sort of chopping issues, definitely just refresh the stream and it should be a lot better. So here is our friend Hiya doing everything normally. Oh, look, and he's taking these Wraiths to kill off these Arbiters. That's something a little bit cute, a little map-specific, that he can kill off the Arbiters. But, I mean, even, for instance, if it was just eggs underneath that Arbiter and it wasn't anything else more funky, I think it would be okay to get the Wraiths. And looks like Hiya's setting up for his next little expansion. There it is, going down. Fantastic. And the Observer coming out. Looks good, looks good. Getting still a whole bunch of Wraiths. And here comes his first little Wraith attack. I'm very curious to see how this is going to end up working out. These minerals are pretty tight against the south end, so it's going to be a little bit tricky to be able to do super effective micro. But look, there's just enough rock here that Hiya can abuse this. I think it's pretty significant to note how big of a factor this rock is playing into all this stuff. I mean, really, these rocks are pretty instrumental to being able to do anything effective whatsoever. And hey, look at that. He has enough Wraiths to one-shot probes. Or it looks like to almost one-shot probes if he micros correctly. Getting some pretty good nice shots off there. And look, doing a scan, and oh look, these Wraiths can kill off Observers. So we're seeing the versatility of getting that scan early on. That is really clever. Wow, scan plus Wraith on a map where you can expand to a bunch of island locations. And, you know, Protoss is going to have a pretty hairy time trying to maneuver around this map because there's just so many obstructions. There's so many eggs everywhere that, you know, a ground map with recall is going to be pretty decent on this map, but this Wraith stuff is just really clever. A nice little uncloaking by Hiya and moving around. Now, if you are, for instance, a D plus level player, do not try this build. Watch this build that Hiya's doing and take the time to appreciate it, to sort of wash around in your mouth, feel the flavor on your tongue, but don't swallow, right? Don't do that, because it's too dangerous to execute a build that's super insanely mondo crazy technical. And a lot of times people who try this do not accept that fundamentals are so important to executing some strategies. You know, it's kind of funny because Noni is a huge fan of really difficult technical strategies that relies on pristine mechanics to be on an even playing field, right? Not pristine mechanics to be at the next level and to win easily, but just to be normal. That's the sort of build that Noni has been streaming on his StarCraft 1 stream. And it's so funny because he was telling me that he gets a lot of PMs from people who are asking for more replays. They're like, you know, I tried your strategy and I couldn't execute it. I messed up. Can you send me more replays? And when Noni told me that, I was thinking, yeah, why is it that people are thinking that it has to do with the strategy. I mean, you really just have to be focused on a million places at once with some strategy, and this thing that Hiya's doing is a great example of that. Do you realize how flimsy Wraiths are? I mean, there's a reason why people have nicknamed Wraiths paper planes, because they just die so incredibly easily. You have to be really on the ball with your control. Make sure you are not missing a single beat. And notice the timing here as well. When did this expansion finish? When is it available to have SCVs transferred? Right at the moment that the Wraiths are attacking. Very easy now to send these SCVs over. I think that is another really important concept that I will take time to talk about. Anytime you have an attack as part of your build, do the attack and expand. Or try to see if you can get an expansion in. StarCraft 2, Reapers are cool. Oh, he has to defend and focus really hard to defend the Reaper? Can I throw an expansion down now? Yes, you can throw an expansion. So do it. That's the key time to do it. And especially when you are doing a build as crazy as Hiya's right here. Whoops, not right there. Right here. There we go. Where you need your opponent to have no units in the middle for a safe transfer. The time that he's going to have no units there is right when these Wraiths first appear, and he doesn't have any cannons up, he doesn't have anything to defend. Now this is something that I'm going to spend a little time on, which is how awesome of a human being Free is. Notice that he just went for the usual gateways into Arbiters, and then he's taking a third. Very normal, very good, very solid, very stable. I like it. But then he saw these Wraiths, and what's he going to do? He's going to get a Forge and just make some cannons. And there's the scan to kill off the Observer. Genius play by Hiya. Absolutely fantastic. Genius, 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 genius play. And there's the other snipe. Just as important to one-shot Observers as it is to one-shot probes. But yeah, getting those cannons up in his main, what did that do? Well, it's going to deny that harass a little bit more easily. It's going to deny these Wraiths a little bit more easily. Jesus, this guy's such a badass. We'll come back to this covert ops in a sec. It's going to deny that a little bit more easily, but it falls in line with all these ground units he's already making. He gets the Forge up for cannons. He can upgrade his ground units, make them a little stronger. He's not going to do something crazy like get a Stargate and make a whole bunch of Corsairs to try to kill off the clustered Wraiths or anything crazy like that, because Corsairs is something that's out of the way. It doesn't flow into the rest of this build. And now Free is staying very, very tight. Typically, Protoss would be moved out into the middle of the map at this time, but instead Free is pulling his army back at this time. And army positioning, really, you should think of as an integral component of your build order. Some people pretty much just focus on the buildings to it, but really the positioning is equally as important. So we're going to see a nuke going on. Now, why does this make sense? Why does it make sense to get nukes at all in this situation? Well, we have a whole bunch of Wraiths that are one-shotting Observers all over the place. That's a lot of gas, right? That's a ton of gas that we're burning for our opponent. And if we can snipe off enough of those Observers, we can free up a position for our Ghosts. And also, with our opponent way held back, way pushed back to the edges of the map, so that way he doesn't end up, oh, Jesus, a Dark Archon, that's pretty awesome. You know, while our opponent is spending all his time being pulled back, you know, to the back edges of the map to hold off this Wraith harass, we have a lot more freedom to move our Ghosts where we want to. Look at the mini-map. This is the first time Free has even ventured close to the other side of the map at all. I mean, very long time. And of course, Free, anytime you're feeling a little bit comfortable, scout all the expansions on the map. And sometimes you'll find your opponent's expanded somewhere. He's done a little bit of sneaky business. So, and of course, Hiya continuing to poke in here. These Wraiths are doing some damage. I really would say right now the Wraiths are somewhat of a significant loss for Hiya at this point. I mean, they're awesome. I'll never argue that they're not awesome. But they really haven't done amazing amounts of damage. That's why it's really important to make sure there are other parts of the build that are making up for it. So let's think about that for a little bit. Let's talk about that. Anytime you do something crazy, make sure you have a justification for it, such as doing a ton of damage. So I got a bunch of Wraiths, or not me, Hiya got a bunch of Wraiths. And how many Wraiths did he get? Like probably 12, 14, 16 at this point? A lot of Wraiths. Has lost quite a few as well. And has killed off, what, 10, 15 probes? Not the hugest kill. Maybe 5, 6 Observers. Pretty good, pretty good. I'd probably actually like the Observer kills a little bit more than I like the Worker kills, personally. But damage-wise, Hiya really can't just suddenly go back to ground. He can't do that. because he's spent so much time investing in these wraiths and has not really damaged Free that much directly that you can't just say, all right, the wraiths are good, did their work, done using them. Instead, Hiya has to figure out some way to continue to exploit these wraiths. So one thing he's doing is taking the island. Cool. Taking the island, wraiths defend islands really well. Great. Getting these ghosts. Ghosts, he can kill off all the observers and nuke places, and he has a little bit more map control. Awesome. That's not a direct money victory, right? It's not like when you kill a probe, haha, I've killed 50 minerals worth of stuff. You know, I have map control. How many minerals worth of stuff is that? I don't know, it's a little ambiguous, and that's why it's always a little bit gray whether or not these builds are that effective. But at the very least, Hiya should be aware of these sorts of things and say, I am going to try to use these wraiths to have good map control. And I'm going to try to use these wraiths to hold island expansions. In the same fashion, StarCraft 2, you know, Reaper harass is good. How do I extend the use of them? Well, you know what? I'm going to kill off the gold mineral destructible rocks with these Reapers, because they do a lot of damage to buildings. Isn't that clever? Isn't that great? Nice little inflow. Continuing to make use of things. And here he is killing off the destructible things, and of course one scan to take out the observers, and he'd be in great shape. But look at Hiya, he's able to use those wraiths to bounce back and forth between the bases very, very easily. So I like this play a lot by Hiya. And here comes the Ghost and the Nuke, because Free is preoccupied with a whole bunch of other junk at this point in time. Let's see if the Nuke ends up working out well at all. And also, Ghosts can fit in between these rubble. Like, you can fit a Ghost right in there. It's a little bit weird and hard to see, but, you know, whatever. Oh, nuking. That's so cool. Now, that's a moral victory there. That's like nuking someone to death in BGH. That's just like what you do because it's awesome. And, of course, the EMP's the Nexus. And here is a little bit of terrain abuse that seems... This is something that, if you don't have this skill to figure out maps where it's good to nuke people, don't worry about it. Not a fundamental component to being a top player, but a fundamental component to being completely and totally awesome. So big props to Hiya for that one. But at this point, I'm looking at this game and I'm like, wow, Hiya is in rough shape, right? Free is having a lot of freedom to move around in the middle of the map. The wraiths aren't as scary as they were once upon a time. Free is also getting these bases up. He has a notice his expanding pattern, very tightly clustered. Very easy to defend from air units when you're very tightly clustered. We like that a lot. If you're spread out, it's a little bit harder for a ground army to, you know, get you everywhere at once. You can sometimes control them. But, you know, you're more vulnerable to air if you're spread out. So, you know, more cuteness, and we should see some wraiths popping in here any second now. But, you know, so here is part of the game where the theory begins to break down about the build. The theory is, as long as I have a whole bunch of wraiths, then I can control him well enough to hold this island expansion. And here it's like almost true. So here comes a really awesome nuke. Oh my god, if that works, that's going to be so kick-ass. Uh-oh. Oh, that's so awesome. No wonder people wanted me to watch this game. He went Wraith Nuke. But I just want everyone to think for a minute of what they're not seeing. So this is another important thing to note. A lot of times when people are rewatching a replay of the game that they just played, they'll watch the same things that they watched in the game. You know, in the game, they'll have a big army that will battle the other player's army, and they'll try to do some micro, and it might work, it might not work. But then they'll rewatch the replay, and they'll just watch that same battle. What I always say is, watch what you didn't get the chance to see. In fact, something that I did for, you know, a few weeks one summer is I literally would only look at my hatcheries. This is in the old Brood War days. I would only look at my hatcheries. Nowhere else. I would only just bounce between my hatcheries and see if I was macroing. And all of a sudden, I would watch this game, and it would be like one larva build, one larva build, one larva build, and then one larva, two larva, three larva, sitting, and I would just be like, oh my god, I'm so bad at this game. Oh my god, please make the larva. And then like a minute would pass, and then I would make 3 larvae, and I'd be like, ooh, Jesus, why did it take me so long? And I try to figure out why it took me so long to do that. So because I forced myself to think that way for that summer, I always try to be as aware of what I'm not seeing in these pro matches as possible. Because similar to how people want to rewatch the battles of replays that they download, The observer is gonna watch the battles in the televised match because that's the cool part, right? That's the explosion part. But it's not the help you get good part. So coming over here, I'm trying to think about how many factories does Hiya have? Because really, I'm seeing a whole bunch of Dragoons and Zealots right here at that north end, basically right outside the gates here. It's a lot of Dragoons and Zealots, and there's Arbiters up there as well. There's a whole bunch more units right here down in Free's base. What does Hiya have to tackle that head on? Because you literally cannot win with just Wraiths and Nukes. You have to eventually win with stuff. And of course, I think this placement is quite brilliant by Hiya. Notice how much repair space he has with those SCVs. Clearly a planned part of taking that island. I mean, Free just has so much stuff. Yeah, he's been nuked twice. Yeah, there are Wraiths going on everywhere. But always remember, the best counter to anything in StarCraft is to go fucking kill him, right? You know, well, hey, what's the best counter to mass scout? Well, you could always go fucking kill him because he's making scouts. Like, come on. Killing the other person should never be underestimated. The ability to build just standard, typical, good, strong, normal units should never be overlooked. Now, I am going to venture a guess and say that this recall that's going to happen in Hiya's base will end up crippling him. He's going to lose a ton of stuff here. I do not anticipate Hiya really having that much stuff. There was the most beautiful EMP I've ever seen going off there. Here comes another nuke. Uh-oh, units flying in. Wow. Really sick nuke. But I mean, look right here. Look at the damage being done by Free. Oh my god, that's pretty bad. I mean, that's like, this is typical sort of, you know, recall bad. And he did just end up defending against the nuke. So, you know, got to give him a little bit of credit for as much damage as he's doing here. But, oh my goodness, look at this. 1-1 upgrades. I'll come back to the 1-1 upgrades in just a second. But I figured I would at least say, oh my god, to get everyone aware of it right now. But good, solid bit of damage done by that recall. Really good, solid bit of damage. And look, not that many units by Hiya. Really not that many. Enough to hold, but not enough to do any pushing out and winning anytime in the near future. Now, those 1-1-ups, the reason I was going, ooh, I like those 1-1-ups. You've heard me say a bunch of times, I don't think Hiya's really going to have that many units for a while. So a great idea is to just start getting 1-1 upgrades really early on, so around the time you do have units, they're already 3-3. And look, another recall, and this expansion is completely dead in the water. Literally done. Eliminated, right? No chance of it surviving. Sure, you can be cute and repair this depot as long as you want, but one recall kills it. And there is nothing unique or special or amazing about one recall for Protoss. For Terran, yeah, nuking is special and amazing and wonderful and fantastic. But look, this is not an army. What is this? That's enough to move out to secure an expansion, but not enough for a push. Look at how dinky that army is. Really tiny army. It looks like he doesn't even have the upgrades for the vultures yet. I almost called them Hellions, but I resisted that urge. And look, yeah, it's just an expansion force. It's expandiary. He's just gonna hang out. And yeah, hanging out's great, but I prefer winning to chilling. And now, notice how the game has returned to normalcy. It's returned to a many-base Protoss with a big army and recalls versus a fewer bases Terran with factories and upgrades. Most normal thing in the world. Very impressed by Hiya that he managed to work this kookiness into this situation. But still, I don't think he worked it in as well as he could have. Because now, Protoss literally has all the momentum in the universe. Oh, never mind, Hiya. Moral victory. Oh my god, okay. Well, who needs units when you can do that? That's always a good question. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna... I got the geek chills, as Artosis would say, out of my system there for a minute. So yeah, let me just put these glasses back on, so that way I can go, wow, he just locked down an Arbiter. That's pretty outrageously kick-ass. So okay, let's just break it down, right? Because to hell with thinking about things too fully. Let's just think about a few little connections that we like. So if I open up Wraiths, he's contained, so I can take an island expansion. I shouldn't say contained, I should say he's pinned back. He's pinned. Anytime my opponent is pinned back, he's susceptible to nukes from awkward angles. Notice that all the nukes happened from the low ground, so the whole army had to swing around to kill the ghosts. Really, really long, so the nukes are cool. Anytime I have nuked my opponent at some point in time, I already have ghosts up, which means I can get the lockdown more easily. The reason I'm saying all these things, each of them can be thought of as a disconnected thought. They all happened in this game, but anytime you think of something that's neat, think of what would flow into it, and that's what's going to make it strong. That's what's going to transition it from a cool thought to a solid build. So for instance, locking down is cool. I want to lock down anything that tries to get in my base. The bad way to do it is just to get a covert ops and get a ghost and then just nuke them. Or, excuse me, get a covert ops, get a ghost, and then just get locked down and then just, pray that it works. A better way to do it is to have nuked him already, because I'm doing all sorts of good stuff with my ghosts, It's a great, great, great way to play. Or for instance, this is the classic example of this. I already need a science facility if I want to be getting better upgrades for Terran. I already need that. So rather than just getting the science facility to get my upgrades, why don't I make a dropship and harass them? So then I'm already on the way to getting that science facility, but I've made some sort of other purpose out of this. So everything that Hiya's doing is bonkers and awesome, but notice how there's a lot of link-ups. Wraiths are defending the island. They're distracting him. They're letting him nuke. Now that he's nuked, he can even get this lockdown up. And while he's buying all this time, he can get the upgrades up for his huge army. All those are different thoughts, and they're all happening in the same game. But notice everything is I can do this and this together a little more easily. I can nuke and get the lockdown together a little more easily. Very, very, very neat, neat, neat stuff. And by neat, I mean absolutely fucking awesome. Did you see that? Nukes and lockdown. My hero. My hero. And this is the tragic part where... oh, you can mind control those arbiters? That's awesome. I wonder if you can mind control the eggs. So, note that right here, this is just done for free. Free has this in the bag times 1,000. Because, pretend for a moment that you just tuned into this game, which is actually what happened to me. I just tuned into this game. Because people were like, oh my god, it's so amazing, oh my god, Free vs. Hiya, best thing in the universe. And I tune in, and what do I see? I see a Protoss with a ton of bases versus Terran with a slowly dwindling amount of bases. And think of all the reasons this doesn't work when players have done more orthodox openings. As Terran, what would you say here if you hadn't opened Ghosts and Wraiths? At this point, you'd say, man, I should have pushed him earlier. I should have done more damage earlier. I didn't macro well enough. I didn't manage his expanding well enough. These are all the things that you would say. And therefore, these are all issues with Hiya's build because they are the exact reason that he's ending up losing this game. So here are two tanks just shooting at each other. And Hiya playing, about as well as he can. Really creative play by Hiya. Fantastic play. I just think it's really great. I would probably try to be getting maybe a few less wraiths, a few more mines earlier on, because the mines came out real late. The mines came out when he was taking his 4th base right there. And easiest thing in the world right now for free. Just gonna go kill his opponent, because what's the counter to 90% of strategies? To go kill him, because he's doing something weird. And yeah, free, holding down, playing smart, and we're actually gonna review. I'm just going to slide forward here because this ending part isn't outrageously significant. No big deal. And Hiya's still hanging in. He's still hanging in. But Free just has very good play. And of course, he isn't going to have any of this Wraith nuke BS. So, I am going to review the game. I'm going to rewind it back here to this 4-minute and 22-second mark. So hopefully it doesn't refresh the whole video. Okay, it refreshes the whole video. It's a little unfortunate. But while it's doing back, let's come back and let's think for a minute. Let's just say everything that went right for Hiya. He got a hidden expansion up. He killed a bunch of probes and observers with wraiths. He nuked his opponent pretty successfully 3 times. And in fact, the 3rd nuke he did ended up killing an expo, a bunch of probes, and some units. Pretty good amount of damage going on there. And he didn't have any sort of harassment he had to deal with early on. Huh, okay, cool. And he still lost pretty one-sidedly. That game was awesome, but that game was one-sided. It was Terran being cute, and Protoss just, putting on brass knuckles and punching him right in his nerdy forehead. That was the summary of that game. So there needs to be a little bit of adjustment by Hiya. So let's think about what we could have done wrong as Hiya and what we can do better. Because remember, completely love that flood of adrenaline and that grin you get when you see awesome things. Like, okay, I'm trying to run a show where I go, oh, let's be intellectual, let's analyze things, and I cannot help but you know, go, anytime I see a nuke, right? I'm like a third grade schoolgirl who's just getting her chocolate cake. You know, I get so pumped up about it. But once that's out of the system, once that initial thing's gone, just take a minute and just make sure, whew, is this actually good? So let's take a look back at this game, and then I will be delighted to take some questions, and we're going to wrap up with a few other things. So, okay, cool. I'm loving this guy moving up here. Let's actually dart forward to this Wraith harass, which seemed a little bit lackluster. Part of me is wondering, why didn't we just cut straight to the ghosts? Why did we get so many Wraiths here? Because it is quite a bit of Wraiths. And then we're getting the tank now. Yeah, why so many Wraiths? I wonder. Wonder. So there's the Expo going up. A little shocked that there's no transfer there. So that's probably the first thing I would say is, you know, right when I get these Wraiths out, I really should transfer up here to this top location. Maybe he doesn't want to, just because there could possibly be observers out in the middle of the map. But against an early expand like this, I would doubt it. Against other builds, I think it's a little bit more reasonable, but I still doubt it quite a bit. And look at these Wraiths. They're just not doing that much. And we built 3 starports. Wow, 3 starports is a lot of money, and that many Wraiths is a lot of money. I would say we can just build 2 starports, be a little bit more constant with our Wraith production, get slightly fewer Wraiths, and still do just as much damage. Now, I don't see anything that these Wraiths are doing that are relying on their numbers. I see that we need to one-shot, but I don't see that we need lots and lots and lots and lots of them. You know, it's kind of like going 6 racks so you can go mass fire bat. And the question is, do you really need that many fire bats, or could you just go 4 racks and make just, you know, fire bats out of each thing once? You know, do you really need all the unit producing structures there? I really don't think the answer is yes. But I do like the Wraith plus Scan combination, so I'm going to dart a little bit farther forward here. I might even be a little bit more ballsy with taking this third base here. I might really go a little bit bonkers with that. I mean, I guess we do want our nuke up, because again, we want that moral victory, but I just don't know if that's the most effective thing in the world. I mean, really, this is the part of the game right here where I'm going, Hiya just ain't doing too much amazing stuff with these Wraiths. They're doing some stuff. They're being a little bit Mutalisk-like, but I'm not seeing this and going, oh, like my knees aren't going out because he's going Wraiths. My eyes got big when I saw the starports, but only did I truly begin fist pumping when those nukes were falling. So I'm wondering if we can get to that fist pumping a little bit faster. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and go over to the chat real fast here. And I'm just going to happily take a handful of questions. I'd like to thank everyone who showed up today. So let's see here. So let us take some questions. So the first one is from Coco. Coco says, where were Hiya's Wraiths when the Arbiters were going to recall? And why do you think he did the strat in such an important game? So I'm going to answer that second one first. Why did he do such a strategy in such an important game? I honestly think the answer is that he thought it was good. He thought that this was a solid, good, great, awesome strategy to do, and he should do it. And that's largely because it was farther into the series. If it was game 1, a lot of times people do crazy shit in game 1 of a best of 5 because there's going to be more games in the future. So if they lose that, no big deal. I still have more chances to win. Otherwise, if it's in like the 3rd or 4th set, you got to be a little careful whenever you're doing something crazy. So in this circumstance, I think Hiya just thought that it was good and had some success with it. And also, it's good to sort of get in your opponent's face with something weird if you can work it into a series without losing. And also, where were Hiya's Wraiths when the Arbiters were going to recall? Rather than be like, oh, they were over here because of blah, 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 what I'm going to say is, exactly, where were the Wraiths? That's the problem with the build. The Wraiths can't be everywhere at once. That's a gigantic vulnerability with this build, is that as good as the Wraiths are at killing off air units, that comes more into play with shuttle harass. Like if your opponent was going Reavers. If he was doing some sort of Reaver drop, Wraiths are going to kill it. With Arbiters, yeah, it can kill Arbiters, but it's hard to be in the right place all the time. Because if Protoss is in the middle of the map, the Wraiths will be up at the bottom or at the left. So the Arbiter just goes to wherever the Wraiths aren't. So let's go ahead and take some more questions. So here's a question by Drunk Paladin. Do you think rushing for battlecruisers would be helpful or not, since this build already has 3 starports in it? That is actually, I think, a great question, because again, it's this idea of 1-2. I already have the starports up because I did Wraith Harass, so let me just continue to use the starports to get battlecruisers. Again, these starports aren't being used for the later stages of the game, and they really should be. So, the answer, I would say, is that 2 things. One, that's part of the reason why I'm saying build less starports, because we're not going to get that much use out of them. Although the battlecruisers are pretty good, and they're generally quite strong against Protoss, they're strong if you have the good terrain there. The problem with Triathlon is that the center's pretty open, and you really kind of need to move around the edges if you can. A map like Katrina is very battlecruiser friendly, because there's like high ground, low ground all over the place. It's that real issue with the center that makes me hesitant to use battlecruisers, but that is exactly the sort of thinking that gets you to have a lot of creative strategies in there. Owen says, Day 9, don't you think if you add some masking tape to your glasses bridge, that would look 2 times cooler? That's a good point. I do prefer the duct tape for my broken frame, but I'll definitely work on getting some masking tape up there, maybe some packing tape so I can have the shades of brown. It'll look like a nice modernist piece on my face. So, Nick Nud says, Day 9, he got a great lockdown. Do you think spreading a few ghosts around his expos would have helped keep Recall from killing his expansions? Absolutely, I definitely think it would, but need a lot of ghosts. Need about 1 for each of those tiny island expansions, and you'd probably need 2 or maybe even 3 other ones, and that's a lot of ghosts just to be chilling. That's why players favor getting tons of turrets, because they're cheap and generally the minerals are getting high if you can get 3 or 4 guys or 3 or 4 geysers. Yeah, so that's a little dangerous. And someone's telling me I missed a mind control. I mean, it doesn't matter if you mind controls an SCV. I mean, again, like ignoring that mind control, Free just completely won that game with just standard, typical units. So Ray Zero says, do you think the Protoss had a massive advantage due to the neutral arbiters? Could the game have been much closer without them? Nah. I mean, it's just the standard solid macroness to them. So much of good high-level play and who's able to, swing a win in his favor and not. So much of that has to do with just who's playing a little bit more solidly and who's fleshed out their mechanics a little bit more. It's not black and white things like there were arbiters on the map, there were not arbiters on the map, that sort of thing. So let's go ahead and take a few more questions. The Brassman128 says, Dear Day, I'm having trouble expanding mid to late game. Find myself afraid to expand and feel vulnerable and end up losing a macro battle. What is the mental checklist to decide when to expand? So, anytime you're having trouble doing anything, whether it be timing an attack, timing an expansion, timing when to get an upgrade, timing when to make a bunch of unit producing structures, note that it is a timing. So what you need to do is choose a timing and try to work with it. So for instance, I'm having trouble mid-late game taking an expansion. I am going to take an expansion when the geyser in my main says 1,000 minerals, or excuse me, 1,000 gas. When it says 1,000 gas, I'm just going to try to take an expansion. And I like using my main geyser as a benchmark because that's like the most constant rate in the entire game. It's not variable like your food or even like your mineral distribution depending on how you pull SCVs off. Gas is pretty constant all game long. So you just say, I'm going to move out right here. And let's say you move out and you just get raped because you don't have enough units. You go, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to try expanding when my geyser says 200. And then when you do that, it ends up being way too late, and you could have easily taken it earlier. And just try to adjust that number until you have a number. And honestly, that has nothing to do with understanding. It literally was, I'm going to decide to do it now. What happened? Well, I'm going to do it this time. What happened? Okay, I think I'm good. And at that point, you can really start to think about why did it work here and why did it not work here. But anytime you're having trouble, pick a timing, play it for 10 games, and then adjust. Easiest thing in the world. Or if you're really crunched for time, maybe like 5 games or something like that. So let's just go ahead and take one more question and I will wrap things up because it is almost 8 p.m. So Omnom Souls says, Day 9, Hiya had never seemed that threatening in that match because he was doing cutesy stuff and never massed an army. When should you make that transition? Again, it would be a similar answer to the one before, which is, you know, I'm going to start making a big army after I've made 15 Wraiths. And wow, I don't have a big army. Let me start doing it after I make 12 Wraiths. Okay, let me try it after I make 9 Wraiths. Okay, let me try to not make a starport and do it on 8 Wraiths. Okay, wow, that's feeling really good right now. So I definitely think that that's a good summary. Too much cute stuff and not just a good, solid, meaty army to do the big final punch. So let's see right here. What are some other things? Do I like chocolate cake? I love chocolate cake. Let's see here. What is one last question? Some people having some nice little discussionation here. So, you know what? I'll take this last question. There's a lot to answer to it, but I'm just going to dip the tip of the iceberg here. So, Zizor Half Wing Scene says, Day 9, what elements of strategies are important to you? You talk about expansion, harassing, map control, building up an army, upgrades. What's most important, and in what order should we focus on them? I just want to say that the number one thing that you should focus on is keeping your money low, just macroing. First, decide some mix of units to go for, and then macro your heart out. You know, I'm playing Terran in StarCraft 2. I am going to make Marine Marauder Medevac. Cool, those are the only 3 units I'm going to make all game long. Literally the only 3. Just those 3. How do I deal with this? Well, I know I need to keep my money low. That's my one goal. So if I'm playing and I have 5 barracks and my money's at 1,000 and my gas is at 500, and I'm doing a good job of macroing, I'm building out of my 5 barracks, what do? I make more barracks so I can get more Marines and Marauders. I don't do something like, I have minerals and gas, maybe I can get some tanks, or I should try to get a Raven in here. Don't vary it. Just macro. And in fact, that's a series of videos I'm going to be doing coming up here soon, is I'm going to play StarCraft 2 as Protoss, only making Stalkers. Literally, my whole build is going to be Stalkers. I'm going to win with Stalkers, maybe get some Observers, but just Stalkers. Just Stalkers. And see how far I can get and how high I can get up in the rating. Just to demonstrate how important it is to have good fundamentals and how much you can get away with good fundamentals. So with that, that's going to wrap up Day 9 Daily number 112. Today, the bitrate was going a little crazy because I was trying to do YouTube previously, but I'm just going to fiddle with the bitrate settings just a touch so that way more people can end up viewing it. And this will be up on Blip TV. My Blip is day9tv.blip.tv. I have over 100 of my videos uploaded there already. So that's 100 hours of Day 9 if you are interested in that. Because right now I have more episodes of StarCraft than there are episodes of 24, I want to say. No, I need to get into the 150s, don't I? Damn. I'm trying to outdo 24. That's my life goal. So you know what? That's going to wrap things up. And I think I'm going to go get some chocolate cake. You all look very nice today. Once again, big shout out to Martin from Austria for the beautiful shirt, and whoever sent me this bunny for the bunny. And I already lost the bunny. Gonna go find that bunny. See ya!